Hey guys, I'm John Barklow, and today we're going to talk about survival priorities. So when you understand your survival priorities, the intent is that you can take a minor incident, so say getting stuck in the cliffs at night as you're hiking back to camp with a mule deer on your back, or say you sprain your ankle and you in-reach your buddies and you're waiting on them to come get you, that minor incident doesn't become a fight for survival. And that is because you carry the kit, you understand your priorities, and then you can execute on those priorities. Now, the way that you can remember your survival priorities is as a rule of threes. 3 hours without shelter, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. So shelter is going to be your #1 survival priority. So think of clothing, especially technical clothing, as that first primary source of shelter. If I get wet, if I'm caught in a storm above timberline on a mule deer hunt in Colorado, and it starts to snow in August, the first thing I want to do is seek shelter with clothing. So that could be rain gear. So I'm going to put that rain gear on. It's going to protect me. Then I can go and start seeking a secondary shelter, like dropping below tree line, getting behind a boulder, setting a tent up or a tarp, depending on what I have. But without shelter as your #1 priority, you're going to get wet, you're going to get cold, and exposure to the elements is the #1 reason that people panic, fear for their life, and then either leave the field, quit the hunt, or push the SOS button and call for a rescue. So survival is our #1 priority, and we want to make sure that we have rain gear, that we have the ability to either set up a tarp. If we're backpacking around, moving our camp, maybe we have our tent on our back. But at a minimum, if you have a knife, some 550 cord, and the ability to create a natural shelter, you can make something like a lean-to or an A-frame shelter. So the next priority is water. So water is more important than food. If we're hydrated, our minds are gonna work. If we're at altitude, our blood's gonna stay thinner. We're gonna limit ourselves from having altitude illness, all these things. And so water is really important. Now, any water that you may have on you, you're gonna wanna conserve. If you're mobile, so say you don't have a broken leg and you can move around a little bit and there's an easy water source, you can go and get more water. The one thing you don't wanna do is drink contaminated water. If you drink contaminated water, i.e. you don't treat it, you pull the water from a wallow, you pull the water from a stream, you put your head in a pond and you drink, that can make you sick. And if you get sick, i.e. get dehydrated from diarrhea, that's gonna make your situation worse. So a way to go about that is you carry maybe some chlorine dioxide tabs, maybe in your pack you have the ability to filter water, but whatever it is, water is a bigger priority than food. Now food, the third priority, is really more of a target of opportunity, I like to say. So you might have some food in your pack that you can leverage. You want to conserve that food, say a high energy food bar or some electrolyte chews. You want to kind of conserve that, but you're not going to starve to death. Now, you may feel like you're starving to death, but the body has a lot of capacity to go many, many weeks without food. So you're not probably going to starve to death while you're waiting for a search and rescue group or your hunting buddies to find you and carry you out of the field. Now, you certainly shouldn't walk past an unaware grouse. You certainly shouldn't walk past some blueberries and harvest some blueberries, but you're probably not going to be in a situation where you have to set a bunch of snares to trap rabbits or maybe even run a trout line to catch fish. That's more of a primitive living situation. But the one thing you don't want to do is, again, make your situation worse. So let's say you kill that squirrel or kill that grouse, or maybe you do kill a rabbit. If you can't build a fire, you don't want to eat that meat raw, again, for fear of making yourself sick. Now, speaking of fire, notice I did not mention fire as one of our top 3 survival priorities. Fire should be looked at and considered a luxury in the backcountry. There are many, many times and environments where building a fire, certainly a fire with any kind of capacity to produce life-saving heat, can be really limited. I remember the first time in coastal Alaska where I wanted to build a fire. It was really poor weather, and I knew I could do it. I just knew I could. And for 3 hours, all that fire did was smoke and sputter. And really the only heat I got from that fire was the physical exertion of trying to build the fire. So when you sit there and say fire is going to be my default answer in a survival situation, that's really inexperienced talking. So when you and your partners understand your survival priorities, you're going to be able to train and equip yourselves to go out and make sure that if something happens, you can manage that incident to be safer and more successful in the field.